guys, Kelly Book Dragon here, and today I am doing my book review on Lady of Locksley by Erin. Oh, why did it turn like that? Okay, here it goes. Lady of Locksley by Erin Lewis is an ebook that I bought a year or so ago and never got the chance to read it, and thankfully I got to read it this time. And I really enjoyed it. As you can tell from the title, there has been not a role reversal, a gender reversal on the character of Robin. Robin is not a man in this one, it is a woman. And that is not actually the only gender reversal that we have in the story. There's actually two other characters that have also had a gender change. The character Little John, is a woman named Josephine who wants to be a man, tells everyone that she is a man, and goes by the name John and sometimes called Little John. The other character that has a gender reversal is the character of Prince John, who now is called Princess Ethana, I think is how you pronounce it. It's like Ethanna. So that's interesting how it works out to have those three main characters now be women, one of which is actually trying to be portrayed as a man. And it does create some new intricacies in the story, I guess. One of the funny things is that in this version of the story, Maid Marian, who was a childhood friend of Robin, and in most Robin Hood stories is also the love interest of Robin. In this story, she is a childhood friend, um, once a rival to the love interest of Robin. They were both fighting over the same boy, and apparently, according to what I read, the boy had chosen Robin over Maid Marian, which had kind of some bad blood in between them. And in this story, Maid Marian also ends up being the fiance to the Sheriff of Nottingham, which adds a new wrinkle when Robin Hood actually does start doing the whole "I'm gonna rob from the rich and give to the poor," because in other stories, Robin always was helped by Maid Marian, and he trusted her implicitly to help them, make sure they weren't make sure that she was giving them information so they didn't get caught and things like that. And in this story, when Maid Marian is genuinely trying to help, where they've had this bad blood, Robin is not trusting her and actually believes that she is helping her fiance set a trap for them. Now, what's interesting about the princess being female instead of being the male Prince John character is how crazy they made this girl. I mean, I thought the Prince John characters in the other stories were crazy and mean and just awful people. Crank that up to like 11 and you get this girl. She has these really bad mood swings to where she'll be happy with someone one minute and then be really mad the next. And she apparently has this section in her dungeon to where if she likes you or finds you interesting enough and you've done something to go to jail, she will put you in this special section that is called her menagerie, where she keeps prisoners as pets. And that is beyond nuts. I just can't believe that that happens, but it does. And I just, wow, it's insane. But she's supposed to be insane, and you're not supposed to like her, so that's, I guess, right on point. Good job with that. The one thing that I did not expect was that the characters of Little John and Maid Marian might develop feelings for each other because they're both women, even though, no one knows that Little John's a woman. I did not expect Maid Marian to show any interest in him, but it is hinted at a little bit, um, that they have mutual feelings for each other. You can tell for sure that Little John does fancy Marian, but towards the end of the story, you kind of get a little bit that maybe Maid Marian fancies Little John a little bit as well. There is, I know, books 2 and 3 out for this series, so it'd be kind of interesting to read those and see if maybe those feelings get deeper on both parts. If Maid Marian actually finds out that Little John is a woman and how that changes the relationship, that'd be interesting. It also would be kind of fun to explore that, to see what happens when the sheriff finds out that Maid Marian and Little John have feelings for each other, since him and Marian have been engaged in this story. Uh, Now, what happens in getting Robin to the point where she starts robbing people or rich people in this story is that when she comes back from adventuring, I guess, or exploring her roots, her mother's side of the family, who is descended from Saracens, is what they are called in this. She was basically out of England for years. I think it said 6, exploring her Saracen roots. Who, to everyone in this story, they are not wholesome people. They are really, really reviled. They don't like the Saracens at all. So Robin kind of is looked down on as being half Saracen. And when she comes back from this adventure and exploration, she finds that her father passed away and that her properties, or what should have been her properties, were actually given to the sheriff of Nottingham, and he now is considered Lord of Locksley. She immediately starts heading out to speak to the sheriff and be given back her property, because it's hers. She's the daughter of the previous Lord of Locksley. She should be inherited that property, and she wants it back. Well, when she comes and states her case to the sheriff, he refuses to give her properties back, saying that they were a gift from the princess to him, and that he was not giving them back, and he did not steal them, even though that's what Robin says. And she's like, well, you're kicking me out of my home. And he's like, I didn't kick you out. And she's like, but you're not letting me live here, are you? And he's like, no. She's like, well, then you've kicked me out of my home. um, Very, very persistent, and keeps trying to get her property back. Eventually, they come to some kind of agreement to have this small property in the woods, and that turns out to be a dilapidated mess, but it was something, and she was okay with it for the time being. But then she hears that the princess is coming through the area back to the castle, and Robin gets the idea in her head for some revenge by robbing the princess and then distributing everything that she would receive from the princess to the poor, so that way that the poor people would be on Robin's side, so that when the princess came looking for her, they wouldn't help her. They would help Robin and not the princess. And she does. She does rob the princess, and they do distribute the money, and they find that they thoroughly enjoy the feeling of giving to the poor. And they actually, that's how they got started in doing that, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. And it seems like that's something that they continue to plan on doing towards the end of the story. Uh, they do have, if you've read any Robin stories before, retellings, or even watched the Disney um, version of Robin Hood that had the talking animals, there's usually a archery competition that Robin attends and gets captured. Even though he does have a disguise, he is found out to be the outlaw. They do have an archery tournament in this book, and I think it turned out rather well. It's not a very long scene in the book, but it's pretty interesting to have that from the other stories, and that's kind of a way of connecting them all because you have that in this as well. Um, the last thing I want to say about this book is something else that I had thought might be something developing. I don't know if the author planned for this and or is planning to do anything with this or not. But a character that, if you've read any Robin stories in the past, you will be familiar with or should be familiar with is Will Scarlet. He in this story is Lil Jon's nephew, which I believe in other stories that I've read, he was actually Robin's cousin. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Actually, I'm pretty sure in other stories I read he was Robin's cousin, but in this one, he is Little John's nephew. He was brought in the story early on. He is very interested in apparently finding an older woman to be his love interest. He's very much wanting to fall in love and be having a family, I guess. And when he meets his uncle tells him about Robin and how beautiful she is, and he does find out that Robin is older than him, so he's excited to meet her and hoping that she will fall in love with him, um, or and let him court her, to become married. And so through this whole thing, you have him following her around, trying to convince her that he is not too young for her and that they could have a good relationship, and all the while being like in the back of his mind thinking, why am I doing this? This is crazy. Um, because I could go to jail, I could be killed. All of this stuff is rolling through his mind. But the most interesting thing I would have to say about the Will Scarlet character is at some point he has a long interaction with the princess that he does not remember afterwards because there is some uh, drug use, I guess, in this scene. I don't know exactly what kind it is, but him and her were smoking something that was new that not everyone had access to. Um, so, back in those days, only the rich would have had access to any kind of drug at all, really. Uh, the poor people wouldn't have had much access to that. But him and her kind of smoked this thing, whatever it was. I don't even really remember what the author called it, but they both got high, and he doesn't remember much of anything to do with that episode of time that he spent with her. But as he's remembering it later and talking to Robin about him having feelings for her and everything, he has this picture of the princess pop up in his head. And I'm wondering if that's alluding to that maybe in some way he's going to develop or have a relationship with the princess at some point, or something, because she seemed to have a high interest in him even when the robbery took place and she saw him the first time without a disguise. The second time that they shared this long episode, he was disguised. She seemed to have an interest in him, thought he was cute. So I wonder if there's going to be something in the future involving the two of them where they have to interact more, which would be interesting to see. But like I said, I really enjoyed this book. It was really good. It is interesting, the gender changes. I had read some reviews on Amazon. Some people didn't like the way the story went because of the Prince John character was changed to a female. They didn't understand why that change had been made. I honestly think, the changes of everything was really good, and I do think having all three of those main characters changed to female made the story more interesting to me. Now, the next two books I'm going to try to get and continue with the story because I am interested to see how some of these relationships play out. And there was even a hint that maybe the character of King Richard the Lionheart isn't as upstanding as he is in other stories. There seemed to be like there might be some darkness to him, and I kind of like to see how that plays out. But yeah, I do give this book 5 stars. I really, really recommend it to anyone who likes strong female characters. They probably will like this. I don't remember there being any strong language or anything in this one, which I kind of expected. So if you don't like really strong language, this still should be right up your alley there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's not. I finished this like a day or two ago, and it's kind of already leaving my brain, some of it. But I hope you've enjoyed my video on this. I am sorry it took me so long to get this one up. Had some things happen in my real life that I didn't get the story read as fast as I wanted. And I'm actually probably not going to get to all of the books that I had on my February TBR because of that. I am about more than halfway through with Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton, and that will be the next one that I review. I only have about like 100 more pages to be finished with that one. So far, it's really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that one ends. But this is where I will leave you for now. Hope you guys are having a nice night wherever you are, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!